Hello viewers, welcome to another episode of the Diabetics series. On the show today, I have Mr. Tafara Ncube. Welcome, Mr. Tafara Ncube. He's going to be sharing with us his experiences with diabetic so that he also helps others who are living with the condition. I had already said your name, but maybe you can spell it out for us and tell us how you'd like to be identified.
Thank you, Mutsa. Hello, viewers. My name is Tafara Ncube. My first name means we are happy. That's what it simply means. And yes, you're quite right. I'm living with type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
And I'm glad to be here to have a conversation with you.
Okay. So how would you like to be identified in general? Like when people think of Tafara, what should come to their minds straight?
I think when people think of Tafara or hear about Tafara, they should think of a business consultant, because that's what I'm known for.
Okay.
That's what I do for a living. I'm also an athlete, a marathoner, which I'll share how I became one more in the show. And I'm also a presenter and broadcaster.
Okay.
Yes.
That's interesting. All right, so you said you have type 2 diabetes mellitus, and for how long have you been living with this condition?
I've been living with type 2 diabetes for about 8 years now.
Okay.
My diagnosis was in 2012, September of 2012, and that makes 8 years.
8 years?
Yes.
Okay. So what symptoms did you have then? What made you go to the doctor and then you were told you have diabetes type 2?
Okay, you know, it was really weird the way it happened. I felt a very, very bad sense of unwellness. Okay, yeah, I felt very unwell, and there was one particular thing that made me to up and go to an ordinary pharmacy just to get checked out.
Okay.
So I was feeling a tingling in my hands, twitching and pulling of muscles in my hands, and cramping. And the same feeling was also on my feet.
Okay.
Very uncontrollable. And I thought to myself, this is really not good and I have to be checked out. So my immediate suspicion was that my BP was probably high.
Oh, you are also hypertensive?
No, I'm not hypertensive,
okay.
But in the days building towards this particular day, I had tested with a high BP reading.
Okay.
So I just suspected that it could be a continuation of that.
All right.
So I went to an ordinary pharmacy, and I requested the pharmacist to test for BP, for blood pressure, and which they did, and my blood pressure was perfect. You know, and they suggested that we should check for sugar, and I said to them, no, it wasn't necessary, because I was not suffering from diabetes. But the pharmacist insisted, and then they got to do the sugar test, and alas, my reading was 17.
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah, it's quite bad. Apparently, for me, 17 was just a number, and I was like, so what, 17?
Okay.
But the pharmacist was like, this is really bad. The next place you need to go to when you live here is the doctor's place.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any symptoms of frequent urination, excessive thirst, excessive hunger that you are going through?
Yes. Now that it was proven that I am diabetic, they began to educate me about the symptoms of diabetes. In fact, the physician, which I then went to go and see after this visit to the pharmacist, then told me that they asked me some questions if there was some frequent urination, feelings of hunger, and surprisingly, all those things I had felt them. But I just thought it's just me feeling hungry.
Yes.
You know, I was a hefty 90 plus kgs. So I was thinking that my body requires food, because I'm that much of a big person. Little did I know that I was suffering from diabetes type 2.
Okay, I had to ask specifically for those symptoms because we call them the classic symptoms of diabetes mellitus. So I wanted to conscientize our viewers when they start having excessive thirst, frequent urination and excess hunger, which is what diabetics go through. On a scale of 10, what would you give yourself in terms of how you manage your blood glucose levels?
I would give myself an 8.
8 out of 10.
8 out of 10.
Okay.
Not 10 out of 10.
What happened to the 2?
I'll explain what happened to the 2. No, I'll give myself an 8 mainly because I accepted that I'm a diabetic. I'm living with this condition. It's not a disease, but I like to call it a condition.
Yes.
Right. I accepted. That's the first and foremost thing. And then because I accepted, it came with the requirement to change what I eat. It came with the requirement to change my lifestyle, right, in terms of physical activity. So I would give myself an 8 because I managed to make a complete turnaround on my diet.
All right.
Included more vegetables, more fruits, less of starch. In fact, in the earlier days, I had to actually eliminate the starch. Okay. Because I learned that starch is easily converted to sugar the minute you ingest it. So my choice was to eliminate the starch, although the body needs starch, yes. But I chose to manage my levels of sugar by eliminating starch. So I went on like that for some time, and I began to see some results. And I chose to take on running as my physical activity of choice. After my diagnosis, actually I started with jogging, okay, not running immediately, but in 2017, that's when I took up actual running as one of my management of my type 2 diabetes. So I actually ran, and I've done as much as 45 kilometers. Wow. Non-stop. Okay. Right, yeah, but I didn't start, at that distance. I started with very much difficulty, running a kilometer or 2 and sweating very hard. So I kept at it and kept on going because I knew I needed to change this in my life. I needed that activity. So it became a hobby, which I then liked, and I had fun doing that. At the same time, it was helping me to manage my diabetes. So it was a change which I welcomed in my life, and I continued doing that to date. So okay. I'm a proud member of the Adventist Athletics Club. Okay. I'm running as much as 45 kilometers. That's the longest I've gone. Okay. All right. So the other two. Yes. Okay. Can I go on with the other 2? It's okay. The 2 points out of 10. Lately, I haven't been very good, because of the good management of my diabetes. I was beginning to relax a little in terms of what I ate. Okay. Sometimes, I would go for more starch, and sometimes I would even take the sugars. Okay. Because the sugar is needed by the body. That's what my doctor told me. Yes, my doctor told me that it's not about completely abandoning sugar. Okay, because the body actually needs the sugar. Yes. But I got to relax a little bit, so I've taken off the 2 points. Okay. Because I think I did a little bit more of that, but my sugar is still very well managed. Okay. The good thing is at least something is lacking, and you work towards grabbing back the 2 points you lost. Yeah. So do you find it necessary to be testing your blood sugars levels routinely? If so, how often do you do that? Okay, thank you, Mutsa. It's quite an important thing to know your sugar level. Why I'm saying it is important is because that is what informs you how to eat. All right, that is what informs you what to include in your diet. All right, so you cannot be a diabetic person and fail to check your sugar levels. It is at least recommended that you check at least once a day, which is the first thing when you wake up before you eat anything, which is your fasting reading. We call it a fasting reading. So my doctor advised me that that is the reading that I must not miss because there comes a cost to this testing. You need to have what is called a glucometer, which is an instrument which is used to check the sugar levels. So it comes at a cost, and then you also need testing strips, and it also comes at a cost. So for you to test 4 or 5 times a day, it may be costly on your pocket, but at least once, first thing in the morning, you should at least check your sugar levels.
Yes, the fasting blood glucose level.
That's right.
I can see almost becoming a doctor.
You end up becoming one as far as diabetes issues are concerned.
Yeah, a well-informed person. Okay, when
Thank
it comes to hyperglycemia, what do you understand by the term hyperglycemia? And if you know of any symptoms of hyperglycemia, you can also share.
Thanks to diabetes, I've learned some terms, including the ones that you just mentioned.
Yes.
Hypo, meaning low, and hyper,
yes,
meaning high.
Yes.
So you've asked me about hyperglycemia, which is what I suffered.
Okay.
You know, because my reading of 17 was way out of range. So that was a hyperglycemic reading. So at that point, what I understand is it will be any reading which is above 7. Okay. 7 going up is hyperglycemia by what I understand. And you begin to feel a lot of things, including not being well, feelings of weakness. Sometimes you also feel you can't see clearly, you've got a blurred vision. Yes. Right? And your levels of concentration are very low. You can't concentrate on one thing, you begin to become anxious. Those are some of the things that are associated with hyperglycemia, which simply means your glucose, your blood glucose level is high. Right, and you need those symptoms simply mean that you need to do something about it. And if you don't, then there are more complications that follow if you continue to live in a hyperglycemic level of blood glucose level. So to me, hyperglycemia is not good, neither is hypo. If you ask me about hypo, I'll also tell you.
Okay, that's okay. Yes. You know, I'm really enjoying having this discussion with you. It's like also talking to one of my colleagues.
Thank you.
The way you're understanding the terms.
Yes.
Okay. Are you on treatment? If you're on treatment, what medication are you taking? You can share with us the dose if you know.
Okay, when I got diagnosed, it was an emergency, just like I've described. Well, I didn't tell you what then happened after my visit to the pharmacy. If you allow me, I can just give you a little bit, and then I'll tell you because that's how I got to be put on a certain drug that I'm taking. So after the visit to the pharmacy, I told myself I'll do that first thing in the morning, because it was about 9 p.m. when I visited the pharmacy. I had my usual Zimkonde of Sadza, and whatever relish it was, I can't remember what it was. And I told myself, first thing in the morning, I'll go to see the doctor. But I never made it to the morning. I was woken up rudely around 1 a.m. I don't know what woke me up, but I couldn't feel my own weight. I got off the bed, I couldn't feel my own weight. I decided to take a glass of water. I walked to the kitchen. And all I could do was just to pour the glass of water into my mouth, and the water just flew. It just flowed out of my mouth. I couldn't swallow my water. So then I knew I was very sick, and the doctor's visit didn't have to wait till the morning. It had to be there and then. Yeah. So 1 a.m. I was rushed to the emergency rooms, and the doctor had to attend to me in the emergency rooms. So my diagnosis of diabetes was an emergency, right? And the doctor never minced his words. He told me that I was diabetic, and I needed to go on diabetes treatment immediately. I tried to plead with him to say, okay, but isn't there anything we can do to at least try and work my way back into normal sugar levels? And says, no, not with this kind of reading, because by then it was now on 22. Yeah. Which means the general direction was up. Yes. So the doctor immediately put me on medication, which is what I'm taking now, metformin, ranofetch. I know there's another metformin, I don't know what the difference is, but it's metformin, ranofetch, that's what I take, 1,000 milligrams twice a day now.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So you've never, if I got you well, you were not put on lifestyle management alone initially?
Not at all.
It came simultaneously, the medication and lifestyle management.
Yes, I was sentenced right away to drugs.
All right, that's okay. Can you take me through your diet? Like on a given day, how is your diet like?
Right, I'll not give you an ideal diet because, you know, with diabetes, you've had to go through a lot of materials, reading, trying to understand what it's all about, yes, which is what I've subjected myself to. But the reality is, what is available to us sufferers of diabetes is not what is in the book.
Okay.
So I'll just give you what exactly I do on a typical day.
Yes,
okay,
that's what we want.
So in the morning, I either have my porridge,
okay,
which is not of any mealie meal. Okay, it has to be of zio, mafunde, or wheat, right? So I have that kind of porridge, or I have cereal, which is high in fiber, like Weet-Bix or oats. Okay, so for me that makes a very good breakfast, and then I can include a fruit or two, like a banana or an apple. Not too much of it because there are natural sugars that are there which are good for diabetics, but then they mustn't be done in excess. So after that, I'm done. And in the afternoon for my lunch, I can have a slice or two of bread, right, and a salad, okay? And in the evening, I can have a very small portion of salad, okay? Or a slice of bread, yet again, or maybe and a glass of milk.
Okay.
Something like that. And you see that it has to be a small portion, right? Not a huge portion. So for us diabetics, they say we have to always eat a small portion, but more frequently, okay? So it's also recommended that once every 4 hours, you've got to have something. So you will find that maybe between your breakfast and your lunch, there's more than 4 hours. So before your lunch, maybe 2 hours before, maybe you can have maybe some nuts, just a small sizable portion of nuts in your hand, and then you have that as your snack. Or maybe you can have a fruit or something, and then you go into your main. But you need to have your 3 main meals, and you shouldn't miss any. So that's how I manage my day in terms of what I eat.
Okay.
Yes.
Viewers, if you check with our previous episodes on diabetes, there's an episode we discussed about the diabetic plates. You can see the proportions there and adjust where you need to adjust. That's quite a fair diet for you, Mr. Tafara.
Thank you.
Yeah. On the issue of exercise, you once talked about it, but I remember you said you were about 90 kgs.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, is there
90 plus kgs.
90 plus. So is there any significant weight loss?
All right. The main thing that I used to do immediately after my diagnosis, before all the crazy running, was to drink lots of water. In my water, I included lemon. Right? Every time I drink my water, first thing in the morning, about 1.5 to 2 liters of water with lemon. I think that contributed quite a lot to my weight loss, because after that, you obviously will not eat a huge breakfast, because already the water is filled you, and water also helps to reduce your sugar levels. You know, so when you drink water, you help to flush out all the excess sugars, and you maintain a healthy sugar level. So it also contributed to my weight loss.
Okay.
Yes.
So what was really motivating you to have this weight loss?
My motivation was what my doctor told me. My doctor, like I said, he doesn't mince words. He simply said to me do you want to live? It was a question.
Yes.
And obviously my answer was yes. and then it says, okay, if you want to live, the first thing you need to do is to lose that weight. That was enough for me to then put myself on a regime of weight loss.
Yeah, which is also very true. I agree with your doctor. So again, viewers, if you check on our previous episodes, you'll see that we discussed about obesity as a bad prognostic factor for diabetes, and obesity itself as a risk factor of developing diabetes. So weight management is a very important entity when it comes to lifestyle management when living with diabetes mellitus. Okay, so what has been the hardest part for you and your family in terms of emotionally, financially, due to the condition that you have?
All right, I will not say more about finances because I've already spoken about it. The drugs will cost money. The glucometer will cost money. The test strips will cost money.
Yes.
Right. And your diet change will also cost money. I would like to talk about the impact on myself, right, of being diagnosed of diabetes type 2. The biggest thing that was a challenge was the fear of what I've always known diabetes to be. During my childhood years, my first interaction with the word diabetes was at school when we're being taught that there are 6 killer diseases. And amongst them was diabetes. So when I was diagnosed of diabetes, I quickly connected to that teaching to say, now I have one of those 6 killer diseases, which is diabetes. So the biggest challenge is fear. You know, when you are told that, when it's pronounced that you have diabetes, whether it's type 2 or type 1, you begin to fear a lot because you think you're going to die, because you think you're going to get your leg chopped off, because you've experienced someone with diabetes who have their leg chopped off. You think you're going to go blind. You think you're going to have some embarrassing disease, probably like ED.
I know.
You think all sorts of things come to mind. So that is the biggest challenge for anyone. Even for myself, it was the biggest challenge because I remember at that point in time, even my wife was told that you need to understand the condition that your husband has. I think it was directed to some future complications that may happen and that may affect the marriage. Yes. Because it is a disease that can have complications that will affect the marriage. So all those things come to your mind and you begin to fear. So that is the biggest challenge, to overcome the fear of the complications of diabetes, because they are really there and they are real and we've experienced them at one point in time.
And what are your recommendations in terms of managing diabetes collectively from forward? What do you think should be done to improve management of diabetics, the public awareness or something?
All right, thank you very much. Yes, it's my passion to educate people about diabetes, which is why probably I'm here with you discussing even my particular story of diabetes. I'm passionate about it. A lot of people have suffered diabetes, and a lot of people have lost their loved ones to diabetes. Not because it couldn't be managed, but probably because they didn't get enough information about it, of how to avoid getting diabetes at some point in life. They didn't get enough information of how to manage well their condition, or they didn't get enough information on how, or encouragement on how to deal with the diagnosis of diabetes. So it is my passion really to see communities being impacted with activism or awareness campaigns that bring information to the people about what diabetes is, not just to classify diabetes on the lower strata of conditions, right, and place other conditions above it. I think that is wrong, because a lot of lives are being lost because of that kind of mentality. So we need to put diabetes at the same level with other conditions that can be life-threatening, because it is life-threatening. So once a diagnosis has been made and it has been pronounced that you have diabetes, you immediately need to immerse yourself or to access, right? Let me say to access, because as long as that information is not available, no one will be able to access it. So you need to be able to access information quickly and to get support for yourself, so that you stabilize and you approach the management of diabetes in the proper way, which will not cause you to get into emergencies, which may not cause you to get into complications of diabetes or to lose your life completely. So I think collectively we need to have some kind of action to raise awareness in communities, right? In churches, in schools, in broadcasts, wherever there is broadcasting space. Information about diabetes must be made available, even in printed material. For those that are out in the rural areas, they are also sufferers of diabetes, in rural areas, and that sort of information needs to reach out to those people. So I think collectively we've got a lot of work to do to try and bring awareness to people about diabetes and its complications. So my prayer is that more is stirred up in that area of drumming up campaigns to raise awareness on diabetes. Yes. Okay.
My last question for you, Mr. Tafara.
Yes.
If you've been to hospitals before, there's this statement they use, like on every bedside. They say, "We treat, God heals." Based on this statement, how can you tailor it into your experiences with being diabetic?
I'm glad that you mentioned that one. Yes, we are taking the drugs. Yes, we are living a healthy lifestyle, eating healthily, but this does not guarantee life. Okay, this simply means you are doing what is required with your condition. But we need to access a higher power, a higher source of life, which is God Himself, because God created life in us, and God created our bodies and how they function, and He's the restorer of those bodies, according to what the Word tells me. He's able to restore the functions of the body, not in part, but even in 100%. Okay. Only if we believe. So there is that portion that any sufferer of diabetes needs to tap into the connection with God, the Creator, right? Pray to God about your condition. Pray to God about what you are feeling at that particular time and whatever it is you're going through. And God is able to actually save you, right? I'm just going to cite 2 incidences. Already the first one is about my diagnosis, because there's a lot of cases of people that have collapsed and died on the spot without knowing that they are diabetic. That could have easily happened to me. But because I prayed on the morning and say, God, be with me as I live, be with me as I am working, and be with me as I'm going to return from work. And I believe that God had His protection over me on that particular day and led me to go to the pharmacy and stirred up a spirit in me to go and inquire. And that's how it was discovered, and that's how I was saved. So I cannot say it is a pill or a drug that saved me. That's one incident. And then the next incident is a very recent one. Not very recent, but in this year. Okay, I've told you that I'm managing well my diet and my physical activity, which is my exercise, right? But on this particular day, I don't know what had happened, because we eat our food as we normally do, but we don't know what's happening inside our bodies, right? In as much as a doctor may not know what's happening inside our bodies, but can try and assist. So I don't know what happened on that particular morning. I just woke up with an urge to go to the toilet, to go and urinate. So it was very urgent that I go. So when I woke up, almost springing from the bed. I practically ran to the bathroom. I don't even remember how I finished. But the next thing is I was waking up from the ground of the floor. I don't know how long I'd lied there on the ground. And I began to regain my consciousness, and I remembered I'd come to the toilet to urinate. And the next thing is I don't know what happened and how long I was out on the ground. So I'm saying, what woke me up, I'm not sure. What had happened in my body, I'm not sure. But I can apportion or attribute what happened, my waking up, to God Himself, because He raised me. My time was not up yet, and He raised me and brought me back to consciousness. But if it was anyone else, probably I was just going to be out cold. So in response to your question, there is need to have your spirituality in check, right? Not just because you're a sufferer of diabetes, but as a human being, there is need to have your spirituality in check, because we are created beings. We belong to God, and God is the giver of life. And if we want to remain healthy and well and alive, we must remain connected to God and pray for protection and pray for our conditions, such that those conditions do not end up taking our lives. That's what I would say.
That's very true, and that was quite informative. Viewers, I'm sure we all have learned something, that being diabetic does not have to make you a sufferer. It's just a condition that you can live with if you can control it very well. I'm sure from listening to Mr. Tafara Ncube's story, his diet, his lifestyle of exercise, the weight loss, and so forth really helped him to be where he is now, and he has got no complications of diabetes as yet. So it is possible to be diabetic, but with no limb amputations. It is possible to be diabetic with your full sight and everything. Thank you so much for being with us here, Mr. Ncube.
Thank you.
Yes, and this brings us to the end of our interview with Mr. Tafara Ncube, but he's gonna be with us again on another episode. Thank you.